Hey now, it's The Rob from 106.1 KISS FM alongside my broadcast colleague.
Broadcast journalist. Yeah, you know, we can actually say that. I think we are broadcast.
I think technically we are, sure.
As our
We create local content. We're investigative reporters.
I am Eric Cornish from 99.5 WKDQ. I know, like, Bobby Heenan used to always say that. It was one of my favorite things. I didn't know what a broadcast journalist is. And I kind of am.
He would always try to convince Gorilla Monsoon that he was in fact one.
That's true. And even though we lie, we cheat, we steal. Thank you for joining the Enhancement talent today. Before we move on, it is Wrestlemania season. I always like to share some, I don't know, trivia with you because it seems like, at least in this building, we're kind of a fountain of that wrestling trivia.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna give you 4 big names in the history of the business, and you tell me what they have in common.
Okay.
Okay, and maybe think about it. We'll reveal at the end of the show. Kevin Nash, Eddie Guerrero, Ric Flair, and CM Punk.
Okay.
You want to think about that a little bit?
I mean, the only things jumping out of me are obvious ones. These are all professional wrestlers. These are all males, but it's got something to do with WrestleMania.
It's something to do with WrestleMania.
And
that may surprise you.
Okay, I will chew on that. Do you have? Let's. You've been to one WrestleMania, correct? Two. Okay, I've been to one. Mm-hmm. You want to go ahead and share which ones you've been to?
Yeah, I went to WrestleMania 8 in Indy.
That's
back in 1992. I was way up in the old Hoosier Dome with my dad. And I was also at WrestleMania 22 in Chicago.
No kidding.
Yes.
Interesting. Most people would probably think, since I've been to one WrestleMania, that I was probably at WrestleMania 15 in Philadelphia.
That would have been my guess, but I know.
Such is not the case. I was able to go to 18 in Toronto. I was a college student, and one of my friends drove up to Penn State. We went and picked my friend up in Pittsburgh. We drove up through Niagara into Toronto, and we had a whole WrestleMania weekend in Toronto. We were a part of the then largest attendance record, or something like that. Or, no, that wasn't right. It was the Sky Dome record.
Right.
Most people in Sky Dome. And my favorite moment as a wrestling fan was probably being a part of Hogan versus Rock. And I say being a part of it because I feel like the crowd became a part of that match.
Yeah, that was another one of those that I don't think that match was what everybody thought it would be, especially the people in the WWE, but it became larger than life once it happened.
It was so much fun to be a part of that atmosphere. And to me, it's like I started watching wrestling in 94. So I was, even though Hogan was like really hot on the return, I was still a Rock guy through and through. You know, I was more a fan of the Attitude Era than that Rock and Wrestling era. I wasn't a fan live then, and Rock was the guy. Rock was my guy for sure. You know, I have a deep appreciation for him.
Well, as we get into WrestleMania week here, there's a big buzz, of course, in New Orleans, and what we would like to do is create a big buzz for wrestling coming to Evansville here pretty soon. So Make sure you get to the end of the video, and we will give you a chance to win our big prize package that we've been talking about. But let's talk about WrestleMania here because you know, a lot of great moments in WrestleMania history, a lot of WrestleMania stand out, and some of them, I guess, were disappointing. Not as many as were great, but I guess the question today, if you could rebook any WrestleMania card or moment or main event, what would it be?
Okay, well, I'm going to kind of change the question. I'm going to mold it a little bit because your lead-in was taking me one direction. Some were disappointing. And I have two matches here that I feel they had a tremendous impact on the business and are definitely remembered very fondly as being huge matches in WrestleMania. Both are main events. But if you watch them, in my opinion, the match qualities are surprisingly poor. The first example I'm going to use is at WrestleMania 14. The main event of that show, Steve Austin and Shawn Michaels, was the beginning of the Austin era. And it was the end of the Shawn Michaels era. He was going for nearly 5 years after that. If you watch that match back, and they'll both tell you, it was not a good match. Shawn was completely emotionally uninvested in everything going on. He was pilled out to his own admission. And I've heard Austin a few times, once on the network special, the WrestleMania Rewind, and once on his podcast interviewing Shawn Michaels, saying, if you watch that match back, it's not very good. And he's absolutely right. It's not very good. It was a huge match, but but it wasn't very good. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to throw one more at you if I could.
Sure.
And you would think that this would probably be one of my favorite matches at the time. My two favorite wrestlers, number 1 and number 2, taking off against each other at WrestleMania 12. Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart wrestled for over 60 minutes, about 63 minutes, I think. Mm-hmm. And to me, that is a long match, and it's not easy to watch. Not a whole lot happens in that match. In fact, there isn't even a pinfall in the first hour. They paced themselves very, very slowly, and it showed. And to me, you would think I would be like the biggest mark for that match. Can't stand it.
Really? That's kind of hard to believe.
Yeah.
Because I would have thought you would have loved that match.
Do you disagree?
You know, I didn't really think about that match. I have a problem anytime you put an hour-long match on a pay-per-view like that could harm, and it's going to harm the rest of the card too, and it did. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you look at the undercard of that, not a lot of matches could be there, and you know the matches that were there were not great.
There was a good 60-minute in Louisville. It was
Judgment
Rock.
Day.
It was Rock and Triple H.
It's where the Undertaker.
And that had I think 9 falls in it.
Yeah.
And that is much easier to watch to me than the WrestleMania 12 one.
I'm sure they had good intentions when they said let's not do any falls, but at the same time you got to keep your crowd invested in that. And in this era, and even more so today, you would never want to do it because now it's like instantaneous. Yeah. Everything's instant. They
had many matches before that, and if they would have paced them at the same pace, mm-hmm. it would have been a great match. If you could have gone an hour at that pace, which they probably could have, but they didn't. They really slowed it down, and to me, you would think I would just totally love anything that they did. That match is just tough for me to watch.
So how would you redo that if you had to do it again?
I guess I would just call that a disappointment.
Yeah.
Maybe it shouldn't have been an Iron Man match, or maybe I would have booked it differently, as in let's put a few pinfalls in there, mm-hmm. Or some disqualifications, or something to give it some color. I guess when you look back on it, but I mean, to me, the whole thing is just one. It's like one long rest hold.
Gotcha. Well, I tell on my end, not only a disappointment, but also something that I would probably go back and rebook. The WrestleMania that I attended, WrestleMania 8. A lot of people look at that one as the chance to be the biggest match of all time. That should have been the first match ever, or at least the first televised match ever between Hulk Hogan and Ric Flair.
How did they screw that one up?
I have no idea, and still to this day, there's not a lot of rumors out there of why that really happened, but we didn't have Hogan and Flair. It looked like all signs were pointing there. Ric Flair wins the title at the Royal Rumble. They announce who the number 1 contender is. It's Hogan. Mm-hmm. Great. Looks like we're headed that way. And then things change when Sid Justice turns on Hogan, and now Hogan wants Sid Justice, and then Savage gets put into the main event. Great match. I have no qualms with seeing that match between Savage and Flair. It was awesome. And
that was better.
Was great.
That was better than it would have been with Flair.
Absolutely. Not. No qualms with that match at all. No qualms with the Bret Hart Roddy Piper match. I think that was great. But I think if everything would have gone as planned, you might have seen a completely different card. They also knew Hogan was leaving. You were right in the middle of the steroid trial and all that stuff.
Did they know at that point, or were they unsure?
I think they were unsure.
That's what I think too.
You still could have booked it the same way and not have Hogan. I mean, it was an odd finish anyway with Hogan and the disqualification with Sid and all that. I think you could have had Flair going in as a champion against Hogan, huge match. Once they found out Hogan was leaving, have Sid involved in that finish. Of course, they were the last 3 in the Royal Rumble. Hogan comes out as the winner by disqualification, doesn't win the belt, rides off in the sunset for a little while, and then when he comes back, well, now he's got a ready-made feud and got a big blow-off match with Flair where he eventually wins the title. That probably would have been better. Now, where would you put everybody else on the card? I don't really know. I think maybe
because that changes where Macho Man is.
Sid and Macho didn't really have anything going on with them, but maybe you could have done a tag team match and and that would have really changed the streak. Though the Undertaker and Sid versus well, no, that wouldn't have worked either. I don't know where you would have gone with that. The Undertaker and Macho Man against Sid and Jake, because that could have worked.
Here we are booking a show from 22 years ago.
I know, exactly, right?
Can I slow for a second? You stumbled upon something we talked about before, and I kind of omitted this when we talked about our wrestling pet peeves. I loathe double main events.
Oh, yeah.
It's, in my opinion, whatever match you put on last is your main event. I don't like doubles. I don't know if it's had any triple main events, but my goodness, you can have a fully stacked card, but the one do you agree?
I agree.
The one you put on last, that's your main event.
And so that leads us to this point here. What is the answer to my question I asked you earlier? Nice segue, by the way.
Okay, so did you just give me a clue with your transition?
I totally did.
Okay, well, the names again.
Kevin Nash, Eddie Guerrero, Ric Flair, and CM Punk.
Did they all defend the championship but not in a main event at WrestleMania?
Basically, they've never main events at WrestleMania. None of them.
Okay, that's true.
Officially.
Yeah, not officially.
When you consider, the last match being the main event, none of them have main events at WrestleMania. Now, double main events, yes.
And they've all competed in the titles. Has CM Punk wrestled for the world title at WrestleMania?
Yes.
Yeah, he did, didn't he?
Yeah.
So then they all
against Jericho.
Because Diesel was at 11 with Michaels.
Right.
Guerrero won a title at WrestleMania 20.
Yep. So but none of them have officially ever main evented WrestleMania, and one of them still might. That's all we
pretty
could
proud
say.
of myself for getting that.
Yeah, not bad. And then the other, I guess the other thing is you can consider all of those Hall of Famers or future Hall of Famers that we just mentioned have and or have not. Bam Bam Bigelow, Lawrence Taylor, King Kong Bundy.
These have all main evented WrestleMania.
And The Miz have all main evented WrestleMania.
That's true. Look at that.
So
good trivia there.
There we go. Yeah, I figured you might like that. All right. Well, now time to talk about some winning here because after WrestleMania, big things happen, and one of which is WWE Live. That's going to be on April the 27th at the Ford Center, and we would like to send you. Hey, how about front row tickets? 4 of them. 4 front row tickets, plus this whole great package that we talked about last week, including some T-shirts, including WrestleMania 29 on DVD, including this chair right here, this Survivor Series 2013 chair with the Wyatt family. Oh, and I didn't even talk about this, even this very poster. Maybe not that very poster, but
that one's going to wind up
exactly like it. So, so that too. And we're working on even some other stuff. So all you got to do is just enter at the link right here. The link is right there now. Enter at that link. We're going to do this for the next 4 weeks. You can enter as many times as you want. So just enter and good luck.
Wish you good luck. Thank you for watching.
It's the Enhancement Talent. We lie, we cheat, we steal. Look out.